A musician once told me that Curlew's call interweaves the major and the minor keys, and that has kind of strange effect on our emotions, a complicated emotional response to it. Do you think that's why it's special to you?
Well, it's always a wonderful thing to hear, and I can't think of a more evocative sound. I can think of things like the cuckoo and the tawny owl and things like that, but the curlew has an extra layer of something sort of primal about it. It is a properly sculpted piece of yearning that sort of unfolds across the landscape and lets you know that there are other dimensions. And I think, without getting too philosophical, I just loved, from the first moment I saw the bird, which was an easy bird to identify as a child. I was avidly interested in nature, and then heard the cry, the call, the song. I put the two things together. You realise that there are levels to the world that you're in, that are deeply mysterious, and that you're only just becoming aware of. So it's the beginning of a journey into the world, but not the human world, the greater world, so the natural world. So that's what it means to me. It takes me to all kinds of places, and right now, when we're in lockdown, I've been building a house in Norfolk for the last few years. All in all, the project's probably taken about 6 or 7 years. I finally got a house, but I can't go to it. And so I'm thinking of all these sounds which I connect with that place. And the sound of birds is so dumbed down in layman's terms, in terms of how important it is. We all love to hear bird song and things, but it's, as I say, it's another layer of something, a creature responding to being alive and making this sound. I mean, we can relate to that. The closest thing I can think of in human terms, transposing it into, it would be something like Bartok's solo violin works, where he was deeply delving into sort of gypsy music, folk music, where there's a lot of playing in between the note, and you get these ambiguities, these haunting ambiguities. And there's a rub there in the curlew's cry. There's always a sense of yearning. That's what song is, maybe. It's a slightly elevated form of conversation. I think anyone who's really singing has got to be mining down deep to somewhere, a bit deeper than the everyday and the front of your brain. It's something else that you're looking for.
For people who don't know you as an individual but know you as a singer-songwriter, can you explain how important nature is to your music?
I can't over-calculate the input that the natural world has into my creative life. I think I see just about everything framed within it. I mean, that's ultimately what I'm wanting to do, is make something that's like a little stream that's just been born on top of a mountain. That's what I want the song to be singing in that way as it falls, and other people get to hear it always from their own perspectives. It's everything I do is somehow connected or touching upon the natural world, even very. It provides a resource, a metaphor of metaphor that is one of my go-to places to explaining the human, difficulties that we have in terms of grappling with emotions and relationships and the world, the story of the world as we read it and as we play it out. I think that I always revert to natural imagery.
Can you tell us why you got involved in curlew conservation?
I've always been keenly interested in wildlife, but this interest has sort of accelerated since I've had a place in North Norfolk and on the bird reserve there. I was up over Christmas. My daughter bought me your book, Mary, And I was aware from conversations with the wardens and just from sort of osmosis of reading various, magazines that curlews were struggling. I'd seen that, but I had no idea of the scale, so it just suddenly struck a chord, to use a musicianly. I felt a sense of urgency and that I had to just get involved. I just spent my day, the day I was reading the book, looking at a field of about 250 curlew, the most I'd ever seen. It was such a wet winter that I'd been staring through my scope at them for a good half an hour. And so I connected the dots, and the book was the last dot that drew me to action. So now I've become a part of the Curlew campaign.
So this is a bird in serious trouble, but to help them is not like just putting more peanuts out on the bird feeder. These birds live in big, wild, open landscapes, so it's quite frustrating to know what to do to help. And do you share that?
I have a deep sense of anxiety, and I think that it's a word that hasn't been coined. The Welsh have a word called hiraeth, which is a longing for home. And we need a word for the anxiety that sleeps and is fitfully waking in us day in, day out, every single day. That awareness of this disconnection to the bigger thing, and perversely something that we have a chance to consider, perhaps, even though we're bound indoors by the lockdown. It's a chance to contemplate. What does a fish know about the water in which it swims? We get to think just a little bit more deeply about what we're a part of here.
You've said before that you write music and you sing to connect to people's hearts. And I think that's really important for conservation as well, because science is very, very important, but it's only one part of the story. The facts and the figures and the strategies and the action plans are vital, but it's also vital to reconnect us back to nature and to help us to love the world again. So what I think you're doing can be really very, very important.
On a profound level, it has to be an emotional game that engages with people. And it's difficult because we've got the sort of celebrity-honoured sort of mass media methods of getting messages across. And I'm just not sure how lasting they really are. But I don't know what alternatives there are. I'm always extremely uncertain about playing my hand in a public context. I prefer to be a private individual taking measures. But in this particular case, I'm stepping up because there's no time left. This bird will be gone. As we've discussed, this is a bird which has its roots in our imagination all the way through our literature. It's everywhere. It's a relationship that's been treasured for so long, and and that in itself is a measure of just how disconnected we've become. That we can allow something. Well, allow is perhaps the wrong word. We're distracted by other things.
You're talking about the sort of celebrity-led, get celebrities to sort it out. But in a way, you can do some things. I mean, the celebrity world, the music world, the world you come from is a world of emotion. And you can bring so much to the table. Do you feel that this great, massive engine, which is the music machine, can do so much more for conservation?
I think for me personally, just in my engagement, I think there's a sea change that's going on in my own life. I think I've worked incredibly hard, too hard in some ways, and I've lost. I feel I've lost a bit of ground as a human, and I've become very good at doing certain thing. But this next period of my life, however long that is going to be focused more variously, and I'd like to try and use all my resources to do things that have an effect, that not just on my bank balance and my ticket sales, have an effect in other ways. I'd like to think that my music does, but as I say, if you aggregate everybody's involvement, for most people it's a form of entertainment. You know, they like the fact that there's a bit of emotion invested in it, but you know, it shouldn't be overestimated. You know, and but yeah, so that's the way I see this next chapter, and you know, I'll just have to feel my way along and feel what I'm comfortable with and what doesn't seem right. I'm happy to be involved, and I'm hoping to make some small difference in some way, and rather urgently so. So good luck with it all, Mary.